There's been a lot of stuff going on, not just in the U.S. but the world, right? With
Well,
this current pandemic situation and shots or vaccinations or whatever you want to call it.
it kind of seems weird when you say current, as if like it's still going on, but it doesn't feel like it's still going on. Like it's so weird.
Hold on, I'm gonna say this
Yeah, we are not trained medical professionals. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer.
disclaimer.
If you're interested in learning a little bit more about the vaccination opportunities here for individuals, we spoke with Dr. Partha Carr last season, and he was able to supply us with some really good information. Can't hide that.
Very good information.
Yeah, and I think that our ability as individuals to explore options and find out a little bit more about those what those options entail, and saying, oh well, you can get vaccinated, but what does that mean? Like you and I have had this conversation a couple times. I think it's important to kind of point out that we are in two different positions right now, and you recently brought up, and I'm going to have you reiterate here for everybody, something that you said before about going to a basketball game. But the position I'm in right now is I feel super confident going out into public and going to do things and being around people because I received 2 shots of the Moderna vaccine, and that has like mentally empowered me to go and do certain things. Like I don't feel nervous about doing certain things based on the fact that I'm vaccinated. People go, oh, well, what does that really mean? And goes, well, it means that I received a 2 doses of a vaccination that was developed over a long period of time specifically for this situation. And there's a lot of back and forth, and since we're not medical professionals, it's not something that we're going to get too deep into. We're more talking about the options that you have, and then ultimately what does it look like in public. But I potentially could go into a sports arena for a game based on the fact that I have my vaccination shot. Whereas if you and I won tickets to go to that game and we got to the front door, I said, that's great. Welcome. Congratulations. You guys won tickets to this game. It's a playoff game here in Los Angeles for the Lakers. We just need to see an example of your vaccinate, or we need to see the actual vaccination card. Can you provide that to us? That would eliminate you from going into the game. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, tell me a little bit about what you thought the other day when you were in that situation.
Oh, I wasn't in that situation, but
You can lie. It's okay.
no, I wasn't. I
Just
didn't.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
So I had a couple buddies, mentors of mine that came out from Michigan, and I have a buddy that actually works within the Staples Center, and in order to get in, you have to be vaccinated. You have to have both dosages. Is that correct? Yeah, each of each shot. If that particular brand required you to have two shots, and then you can go in. If you don't have it, then you're not able to. So I had a third buddy that does not have a vax. He wasn't able to go to the game. Oh man, that sucked. But they lost the other day anyways, but so wouldn't have been a very good game for him to go to. But and that was the LA Lakers. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things for me. It's like I think it's completely up to you whether you want to, have a get the vax, not get the vax, whatever. But but I also don't see, an issue with going to the grocery store. If you need to go to the grocery store, they're not saying, "Hey, you have to have a vax." So it's almost like if this line is gonna be set that you have to stand, I think it has to be firm. It has to be firm across the board because now we're gonna run into people being able to travel. If you don't have it, then you're not gonna be able to travel. So and to me, it's like it's one of those things like it's almost forcing people in a way without even forcing them to have to get the vax if they don't already have it because you're not going to be able to do the normal things that you once were able to do prior to having it. So it's almost, I don't want to say, we're just going to say it feels forced. And so it seems pretty forced, if that's safe to say. But I definitely understand what you're saying in regards to mindset, feeling more comfortable being out in public, being around people. And then also, since you have it, there are no restrictions or no barriers pretty much far as what you can do, what you can and cannot do.
Right. Are there other things that are forced in today's society that there's a lot of stuff that's seemingly is forced onto us. But for instance, we'll use a pretty standard one here. You have to pass a test to get a license. Which part of a license to you feels forced by the government? Is it the fact that it exists in general, or is it the fact that you have to take a test to get it?
Probably that you have to take a test to get it.
So it doesn't bother you that they require you to be in a database?
Not really. I never thought of it like that, though.
I think a lot of people kind of get a little ahead of themselves when they talk about being forced. Like when you log into your phone and you go to a social media platform like Instagram.
Saw it tracked.
Do you have a password?
Yeah.
Did that company force you to set up a password?
No. You agreed to those terms.
So part of how I feel is I'm agreeing to the terms that if I want to travel, I have to be vaccinated. That's kind of how I'm like thinking about it right now, is like those are the terms. The terms are set. So it's not necessarily forceful. It's right. I agreed to it. So if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it.
But do you think that that's fair? Because if you weren't vaccinated and you wanted to travel somewhere, you wouldn't be able to. Do you think that would that be okay?
That would be like, let's say I want to go to France.
No, would that be okay?
If
you weren't vaccinated and you wanted to travel somewhere and you didn't want to get vaccinated and you weren't allowed to travel.
My point would be that it's not our government forcing you to do that.
But in order to travel, you have to. So willingly.
That's a United Nation, not United Nations. That's a
worldwide
agreement between countries. So if you're going to travel internationally and that country recognizes the United States as a cesspool of misinformation and COVID-related falsities, how many individuals believe that misinformation enough to say that they don't have to get vaccinated and then get onto a plane with a bunch of people? Let's say you and I might not even show symptoms of carrying the virus.
Yeah.
So you don't show any symptoms of coronavirus. You get on an airplane. You go to France.
I want to go to Dubai.
You going to France.
I'm going to Dubai.
You can go there after you go to France. You have to go to France first. You get on a plane, and France says, before you leave where you are, you have to agree to the fact that when you come here, we're not looking for anybody like yourself. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian. male, female, non-binary, doesn't matter where you're from, what language you speak. If you get on that plane and you plan on coming to our country, the Kembe Mutombo finger wag,
No,
not,
no.
not without a vaccination.
Not in my house.
Yeah. That's what's happening. Right? So the American government did a very poor job, regardless of the administration, did a very poor job managing what was happening. We got to a point where, we're seeing thousands and thousands of deaths every day. Now you look around the country, now the world rather, and you see places like India, who are far more densely populated than the United States. And there it is out of control what is happening and what has been happening. And in other parts of the world. So if somebody was going to get on a plane in India and come to the United States, what would your thought about that person traveling here be?
Let them in.
Let them in. No problem. Just let them in. And if that individual is flying into Detroit,
let them in.
And they happen to be going somewhere where you have a relative who's not vaccinated,
let them in.
So it's still like you would advocate for not needing a vaccination over potentially saving individuals who otherwise could be saved. So you have a family member, you have a grandmother. She lives in an area where this individual is coming from India. Mm-hmm. They fly in. They have relatives, coincidentally, right in the same neighborhood that you have relatives. They fly into the United States. They go to that area. They go to use the bank account, or the bank. They have a bank account at the same bank your grandmother does. They go and they use the ATM. 5 seconds after they leave, grandma rolls up. She pulls up.
In the Cadillac.
She's like, I need that cash. Granny's going shopping. She goes out. She gets the money that she needs. She leaves. That individual who came here, who was never required to have a vaccination, has now put not only a family member of yours, but a member of that community in danger. Mm-hmm. So now we're not doing, as a country, a very good job of regulating what's going on. So wouldn't that be the responsibility of the country that the person is traveling to, as opposed to the country they're leaving?
Yeah, but at the same time, if we can't really identify who's carrying and who's not.
You could if they were vaccinated.
But that's not 100% guarantee either, though.
You are extremely right.
So that's
but
that's where
the chances are that if the country the person is originating from is also managing that expectation, then it helps improve the chances of this not crossing borders.
But is it 100%?
Nothing's 100% ever.
So for me, the way I look at it is we're taking measures based on assumptions versus facts.
I think it's all facts. I think the assumption could be made that these actions are the result of foreshadowing, but they are based on facts, for sure.
But I also think that, like, if it's something that far as going to the game, like an arena or an event, like I said, it's one thing if you stand in line on certain things like that, but it has to be across the board. So that means if you go to work, everybody has to have a vaccination. If you go to the grocery store, everybody that works at the grocery store needs to have a vaccination. That means if you go into the grocery store, that means everybody that goes into the grocery store needs to have a vaccination. In my opinion, I don't think that you should be able to block anybody from going anywhere if they do not have a vaccination. And when I say forced, no, not physically forced, but you're putting people in a position where they're forced to have to do something that they may not want to do or feel comfortable doing. It's like going to a doctor that you don't want to go see, but if you don't have any other options, then you're forced to see that specific doctor. If I have a job and my job is requiring me to get a vaccination, I have to get that vaccination or I can't make money for my family. That doesn't mean that you necessarily want to do it. So you're forced in a position that you have to do something based on rules that are being set that you don't necessarily want to agree with, but you have to do it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with the fact that places can refuse service, but that's part of our law. If you go into an establishment that has the ability to refuse service,
it's got to be like that everywhere. Then it can't just be select places. In my opinion, it can't be select places. So then, would I have to have a vaccination and go see my endocrinologist in the office? I mean, I would think that would be a very vulnerable place, going to a hospital if your endo's in a hospital or something like that. So is that what it comes to next? The ambulance won't scrape me up off the sidewalk if I don't have a vaccination.
Well, I think that the way people are perceiving the problem, and I definitely think it's a problem, is that there's a lot of misinformation out there. Oh, we're going to force you to do this, force you to do that. The requirement is that you use best judgment and do what's best for you. That's always the requirement, right? Everyone's required to make their own decisions. You are being put in a position that if you want to take part in a social activity, that the requirement is now that you are safely doing so. And that can't just be a 6-foot rule that nobody paid attention to forever.
We went from 6 to 3.
You can count on your fingers.
Yeah. That's about it, though.
Yeah. So but even then, we're now in a position where we've made adjustments as a society based on what the Center of Disease Control says is relative. And people are still saying, well, it's a conspiracy. It is the government wants to track you with 5G. You got to step off that real fast if that's what you're thinking.
And I think that
not you.
I think the tracking in general is like you said, we have a phone. If they're trying to do anything for us tracking, you've already been tracked.
You have been tracked more than you can even fathom. It is beyond your comprehension to know how detailed the information about you
is coming at you before you even know it. It's sent to you.
You get part of you're on a web page right now. What is that?
Hey man, this is for getting a skating certification.
Okay, all right. So if you're on this web page right now and you go to another web page about skating, chances are a company is going to invest money in potentially showing you new wheels or new skates, because the chances are you might buy them.
Possibly.
If there's another individual who shows all the same tendencies that you do, you get put into what's called a lookalike model. So it doesn't matter that you and I are black and white.
Yep.
But if I do all the same things that you do, they're going to categorize me the same way, and they're going to try to show me something like that.
They're going to target you.
Right.
You are a target.
I'm targeted. Targeted media. I used to work for targeted media. So that information already exists. The way I worked at a company, a little startup in Venice, California, called Snapchat. And funny enough, this is something that we talked about internally. When you open that application, I don't know, have you ever used Snapchat?
It's been a while, but I have.
Okay. When you open up that application, what does it open to?
Ads.
Not necessarily. When you open up that app, what is the first thing that you see?
I thought it was maybe it wasn't ads, but it's the popular stuff that's going on.
It's actually your face.
Is it? Oh, it's been a long time.
So the first thing that you would see is the camera.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I started at that company in 2016, they had rebranded as a camera company, even though they didn't make the cameras. They were a camera company. And the reason being is they're now showing you the world around you through their own lens.
Yeah.
With your eyes.
Yeah.
You have to put in a couple pieces of information. One being your age.
Yep.
Another one being your sex. Yes, please. Another one being your name. What did I say? Age, sex, name, location.
Yeah.
Those are like bare bones.
Yeah.
As far as information. But what a company can draw up based on just those 4 small pieces is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
I'm not going to show you Disney advertisements for a cartoon. I might show you advertisements for the new Axe body spray, Old Spice, or football game coming up.
Yeah.
Based on your age, where you're from, your sex, and your name. Your name takes only a couple seconds to look to see where else that's going to show up.
Yeah.
So now that company has that whole information about you. Now it's going to build a profile based on what you like. How often you spend in, the sports section of the application. How often you step into the entertainment and music area. People like, oh, I just bought sunglasses off of the internet, and now every advertisement I see is for sunglasses. Well,
yep.
Yeah, because all of the trackable actions that you were taking
for looking for sunglasses
were looking for sunglasses. So now we know. That is bare bones.
Yeah.
It can't be any simpler than just saying like, hey, that guy was just looking through the front window of a store. If he walks by another store, show him something flashy. Maybe we'll get him inside.
Yeah.
So you're looking at rollerblades walking down the street, and you put your hands up on the window, press your face up against the window, and you're like, oh, man, look at those blades. Those Mission blades with the purple wheels.
Got them.
Get on my feet.
Got them.
And you're like, man, if I ever saw those again, I'd probably buy them. You walk another 400 yards down the road.
There's another
rollerblade store. That store is now aware that you stopped and pressed your face up against that other window. And now they're going to say, we got those same skates. If we mark them down 10%, this guy's going to buy them.
You buy them from here.
They have somebody jump out the window, and they're like, Brandon A. Denson, stop right there. Brandon stops in movement.
But to go back to the vax is free. So
it's free. You are not required to you're not required to do much other than to prove that you are a real person. Well, we were in the grocery store one day when we were up in Los Angeles, and from across the street they came over
the hospital,
and they said
on over to PA in Vaughn's, the store literally said, if you have people that are waiting in the back to get the vaccine, we have extras. They can come right across the street. There's no wait.
So 2 things. One is they're doing the vaccinations in pharmacies. That's the Johnson & Johnson vaccination. They don't have to do it in it. The hospitals have the ability to do the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccination based on the temperature they need to be kept at. But they're basically telling people, if you're waiting for it, we can do it. Come get it.
Right now. Come get it.
And it's that opportunity is going to be steady for the next couple of months, if not year.
Before we close this out, I wish they just gave insulin away like that. But that's a whole nother subject and for another time.
I just saw somebody post a meme on social media that said exactly that.
Man, like
that said if they can give away vaccination for free. Why can't they give away cancer treatment drugs and chemotherapy and insulin?
I'm just saying.
Right?
Just saying.
However, what did Michael Castagna say about what it takes to run the business, like to make insulin? The inhalable insulin that his company makes, how much does it cost to run the facility a year?
Oh, it was like 30 million, right?
Plus
30,
you got
30
employees.
plus million, yeah.
Plus you got insurance you got to pay. Plus you got all that fun stuff. So ultimately, everything there is going to cost money.
True.
But I also agree with what he said. If you listen to the podcast we did with the Afrezza, the Mankind is the company that makes a drug called Afrezza. It's inhalable insulin. We spoke with the CEO last year, Michael Castagna. He said that what they determined would be an appropriate price for insulin every day.
You got 10 seconds.
Would be the cost of a Starbucks.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't free, I just wish it was a lot cheaper.
Way cheaper.
That's our time for today, because Brandon is putting me on a hard stop. We appreciate everybody catching up with us here in season 2 of the Bolus Maximus podcast. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. If you'd like to be featured on our podcast, we'd love to hear from you. My name is Brandon A. Denson. This is Matthew Taro.
My name is Matthew Artero.
And we're representatives of Bolus Maximus, a nonprofit organization helping serve individuals in underrepresented communities. We're here to support, educate, and motivate. Have a great day.
Keep it 100.